Hi everyone, long time no see. I've been incredibly busy with the new job, but now I've found some spare time and I wanted to share some stocks with you that I've been researching. As you can see here, a lot of these stocks are different to the stocks I was talking about in my last video. I'm hoping that I'm going to get some time to go through those stocks in another video, but for now I wanted to go through my research for Immunic Therapeutics. This looks like a really interesting stock with lots of potential. But it's not without its complications, so stick around until the end of the video before you make your decision. Okay, so let's start on our journey into Immunic Therapeutics. So we can click on the logo, we've got all of these links set up, we can go and take a look at the website, check out their pipeline. And then we can see here that they are targeting multiple sclerosis. This is with Vidofludimos Calcium, and you can see here that we're already in the phase 3. So if we go back to Ticker and we go to check out the points, we can see here that we have the IMU838 potential. And if we click down into that, the description is telling us that the potential of this drug is between $3 and $7 billion. We can go back to the links and check out the chart. And then on here we can see we've got a market cap of 225 million. So a drug worth between 3 and 7 billion if it's successful for a company with a market cap of only $225 million is a very exciting prospect indeed. But as mentioned before, this is a much more complicated story. So if we go back to Ticker, go back to the points. So the first ball point on the list is the fact that it's had strong phase 2 results. But we can see here there's more points lower down. And a bare point to that is that we are still waiting on the relapse rate. So the phase 2 results did provide a relapse rate, and they gave a relapse rate of about 42%. So this is a pretty decent rate because DMF is at 50%, so DMF is slightly better here, but teriflunomide is 35%, so it beats teriflunomide. But this 42% has to really be taken with a pinch of salt for two reasons. The first is the really small sample size. I believe it was 12 patients, but then 2 of them left the trial. So we're not really going to get any statistically significant numbers from this. We really have to see what the phase 3 results return. So going back to the ball points above, I'd actually group the next 3 together. So we've got targets both raw and pura, favourable safety profile and neuroprotective function. All 3 of these are the properties that could give IMU838 its edge against competitors. The neuroprotective function is actually part of the targeting raw and pura. However, I've listed it again because it's mentioned separately quite a lot. But the underlying fact is that it's a dual mechanism drug that targets DHODH inhibition for raw and the neuroprotective function for pura. If this holds out in the phase 3 results, then this is going to be a significant benefit for this drug, because as patients transition through this stage of the life cycle, they often need to look at different treatments because the previous treatment isn't working as well for the next stage. However, it's possible that IMU838 can target both of these stages and therefore be a more appropriate drug over much more of the life cycle. And the other thing here is the favourable safety profile, because many of the other competitors, they have issues with liver injury and immunosuppression. So it's easy to see that if these points hold out, they could be a real game changer for the market. And that now brings me to one of the strongest bear points for this opportunity, and that is the fact that there is some really strong competition here. If I click in, then you can see here in the description that there's 9 major competitors in this space. So we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar market, but if this drug is successful, it's going to have to compete with 9 other competitors. So it's going to need some really strong data on those ISPs, or some really strong data on the efficiency. A ball point to this bear point though is that patients do continuously switch between treatments through the life cycle of this disease. So there's really a clear unmet need in this market. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the IMU838 potential. Let's move on to the bear points. So as we can see here, the heavy warrant dilution is what concerns me most about this company, and there's a very good reason for this. If we click in here, we can see that the outstanding share count only accounts for 17% of the shares. So if we were to go back to the links, take a look at the chart. So we have a current market cap of 218 million. If I then open the calculator, 218 divided by 17 times 100. Then the market cap of this company is actually $1.3 billion. So it's actually not quite a cheap company after all. So when you combine that with the really small sample size of the phase 2 study, you can see why this company isn't quite what it seems at first. So if we go back to Ticker and the points, so I can see I've got some additional points here for the warrant dilution. And yes, a ball point to this is the fact that the insiders are not selling. So with many biotech companies, what I see is the directors, they will get their share allotment and then immediately sell a good portion of that. However, you're not seeing that within Immunic, which means that even with the heavy warrant dilution, insiders still want to hold on to all of their shares. So if we go back to the top level, so we got high burn and heavy dilution. So the dilution part here is actually outside of the warrant dilution. On top of that, they've tripled the amount of stock in the last 5 years. And they're currently burning through $100 million per quarter. That means they only currently have runway for a couple more quarters, although they do have another 200 million available if the phase 3 results come in well. So going back to the final bear point, which is no quarterly calls. So this isn't too big of an issue, but for me, I do find it concerning when you can't see quarterly calls from a company. I find with quarterly calls that you can really read in between the lines with their tone of voice, hesitations and cadence. So it always leaves me a little less sure about a company if they don't hold quarterly calls. So if we go back to the links, take a look at the chart, we can see here that Immunic has already had a very good year. It's gone from a low point of around $5 to the $16 that it's currently sat at. I certainly wish that I'd found out about this company at the start of the year, but I actually still think there's a lot of value left within this company. Even though the sample size for the phase 2 is small, the results look really encouraging. And for me, the risk-reward ratio for this company looks favourable. I'd expect the stock price to go over $40 if the phase 3 results were strong. Of course, without successful phase 3 results, then it's very possible that this company could be heading to zero. I think it's worth a punt though, and if any of you have any information about this company that you would like to share, please let me know. Okay, until the next one, see you then.